Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast, another season preview episode. You do a special teams episode, Bud. And I don't, I, have we done these before? I don't, it feels like maybe we've just passed over special teams or are incorporated into some kind of 5 minute review. Long story short, I'm very optimistic about this group. And so we're going to have our own conversation. If we've done it every other year and I've just forgotten, so be it. But you got really really solid punter, beyond solid, a kicker that I think you have to feel really confident about, and two very solid backups, and what could be a pretty interesting set of return options. So excited to jump into tonight's preview pod. This will be perhaps the shortest, probably should be the shortest episode that we do. So we'll get in and out on this one, and yeah, let's talk special teams.
All right, man. First down. Let's do this thing. We normally don't do a special teams episode because I'm not really sure people want to listen to it, but we need to give the special teams some flowers. Last year they did finish sixth in Bill Connolly's special teams rating, which is pretty good. Michigan was, I think, 4. Georgia was 2. Miami, Ohio, which if you watch the MAC title game, I think they blocked 4 kicks. So pretty nice job there, and they had an incredibly good kicker and punter as well. But I wanted to do this because I really believe that if this team is going to go where, like, you got the negative fairy on the one arm, you got kind of the positive fairy on the other. If it's going to reach its ceiling, right? If you're going to go 12-0 or 11-1 or something like that, and if you're going to make the college football playoff, either by winning the conference or as an at-large, man, you're going to have this special teams play as well, or maybe even better than you did last year. And I think you have a really potentially a very good unit here. I mean, I'm legitimately excited about all of these units. So if you look at it last year, field goal efficiency 23rd, kickoff 44th, punt efficiency 5th in the country, pretty nice there. Kick return 28th, punt return 121st. So there is certainly some room for improvement. Now, Keon caught the ball, and Keon did have, I think, 2 notable returns, but obviously he was dinged up, and so part of his value was just catching the ball, right? Which he generally did when he was healthy and in there. So a little room for improvement there. But I mean, you look at this, like, I'm pretty excited about the punt team, which maybe that's just because if you watch Mike Norvell's press conferences or practice, I think he's a little bit frustrated right now with where the passing game is overall. And today he addressed Kentron, receiver, had been slowed by some things. So obviously we're not going to dime him out on the injury policy. He talked about it. So obviously that's one of the key pieces for your passing game. There's no secret, or I don't think it's any secret that the offense, from the passing game standpoint, could potentially be good at some point this year. But I don't know that it's going to be amazing to start out the season, right? Just given some of the ups and downs that they've had in fall camp. And knock on wood, that's marble. There we go. Knock on wood. That does not last deep into the season. And certainly this program is blessed so far with better fall camps than some have had, including maybe a few that we'll talk about in an upcoming episode on your schedule. But Mastromanno last year, man, I thought really turned a corner and punted the ball well. Obviously, you have athletes all over the field now, which is a credit to the improved recruiting that this team is doing in terms of speed and physicality and size. And they may not have great refined skill at all of the positions, but they're definitely. I do buy the bigger, stronger, faster mantra from Mike. Now, he's not saying better necessarily, and I think he's careful not to say that because why would you paint those expectations if they, until you see a little more signs that they'll be fulfilled. But Mastromanno last year, dude, he was a guy. 66 punts, 45.5 average, 43.4 net average, average return of only 6.4. Less than 20% of the punts were even returned, and despite that, he only had 3 touchbacks, 25 inside the 20, another 10 inside the 10. Hang time of 3.98, which is also quite good. And I mean, that's really, really solid. I would anticipate that you will punt more this season because I mean, the offense is a step down to me. Maybe not a massive one, but like I just don't think the personnel is quite as good, and they obviously haven't played together like last year's offense did. I mean, last year's was pretty much plug and play, with the exception of the two tight ends and Keon coming in. But most of the pieces were, returning pieces. I'm excited about what he can be this year because like that can be. And I just came from Big Ten Media Day, but that can be a real weapon. See also Iowa. See also some of these teams where, and this plays into the fourth down conversation too. But I guarantee you, Mike's calculus was part of like, all right, well, hey, on the one hand, how many chances are you actually going to have in opponent territory? But with how well you think your defense is and how well he punts, that could be a real weapon for you this year.
Yeah. Yeah, Mastro blossomed into a real weapon for you, and has and we mentioned this last year at the beginning of the season, has a manner in which he kicks the ball, which a lot of times it drops out of the sky. And the only comparison I can give you is it's like looking at a knuckleball. I mean, it's here, kind of moves again. It's not it's not by accident that teams, most notably LSU, but the teams just have had a hard time catching his ball on punt returns. Mastro, I've learned a lot about Australian punters recently, and Mastro comes from a Australian football league background, or AFL, I believe it's referred to, which is just a hybrid of rugby and American football. And it doesn't surprise me to see Australians kind of taking over the sport when it comes to punting. They are very much a prized asset out there on the market, and Florida State has perhaps the best one in the country in Alex Mastermano. So, um, you think you can be really excited about both your punter and your backup punter, as strange as that sounds. I mean, Mac Chuamento is, I believe, how you pronounce Mac's last name. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but not doesn't have the Australian background that I just referenced, but routinely just bombs the hell out of ball in practice. And this is something we're going to say when we flip to talk to about the place kicker in a second. There's a really good one, and then there's one behind him that's there to be excited about as well. So the depth here is unprecedented to some extent from a Florida State perspective, and we felt warranted kind of its own standalone preview. But and I'll also add, I know in theory, and I'm not slandering Mr. Rosenberry or whatever else, but you had a first team All American long snapper. Now I don't, whatever you want to make of that, you can. Um, I I don't know who the starting long snapper is going to be. Wouldn't surprise me if it's not the transfer from Ohio State. But I don't think you'll see any noticeable drop off there. Now, hopefully, I didn't, just jinx us. And long snapper is not a position that anybody's ever going to recognize until something goes wrong. But I think you're pretty solid when it comes to that part of this component as well.
Who votes on the long snapper award?
I
Because I get asked to vote on a lot of different things. I usually decline, but like I don't think I've ever been asked to vote on the long snapper. That
yeah,
is
that is some real interesting narrow window of focus. If you're telling me that you've evaluated all 134 or whatever there are in D1 football, and you're pretty confident that this guy is the best in the country. That's interesting. I think I mentioned this on the Nolecast periodically, but I played middle school football, and grew up with this guy that I was good friends with, who was a decent football player, but was not going to play in the league or play at a school like Florida State or Georgia or something like that. Turned into a long snapper, was the long snapper of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for a decade. And for some people that's the route to the NFL, and good for Mr. Economos for making that work. But I think Florida State's got a good one. And I think this is going to be a really solid unit all around.
Take a moment here to talk about our friends at the legendary home loans team. 844 FSU Loan. 844 FSU Loan is the number to call. Also, just click the link right there in the show notes. It'll take you right to the page. Over 550 Nolecast listeners have decided to get their home loan. Notice some rates are dropping in the last week. You may have noticed that. And that's a good sign if you want to be in the market for a new home. So give Chad a call. 844 FSU Loan. 844 FSU Loan is the number there. Kicker. I mean, again, 14 of 15 from under 40 yards, 5 of 6 from 40 plus, 58 of 58 on PATs. By the way, 58 touchdowns last year.
Hmm.
Whew, that's a lot of touchdowns. Um, it is a valuable weapon, and this is something that, if you're modeling this team from like a season long stats perspective, you may be prudent to perhaps model a few fewer touchdowns, both in terms of pace, but also in terms of efficiency, um, just overall. But man, if that ain't a weapon to have, like guy just boots the ball through the upright consistently. Again, knock on wood, but there is some real talent there, and I know you're really excited about the backup as well.
Uh, Again, I take ratings like these with a little bit of a grain of salt. I think it's probably appropriate for kickers, and with all due respects to rankings and things like that, to probably group them more in groups of 10 or something like that. I don't know that it's really clear to be like, hey, this is the best prep kicker in the country. Now, every once in a while, you have a Sebastian Janikowski. You have a Sebastian Janikowski, when you look at his high school film, you think is CGI before CGI was invented or something like that. But long-winded way of saying Weinberg, depending on where you looked, was one of the better, if not the best, prep kicker in the country last year. I have seen nothing in practice to make me think that that's not absolutely accurate. I mean, the dude has a noticeable leg. Wouldn't I don't know. I don't think we're giving anything away because I don't know that any decisions have been made with certainty. But it wouldn't shock me to see him have kickoff duties and Fitzgerald be your field goal and extra point guy. I think Weinberg, you just mentioned Fitz's strength, which is what, -1 within under 40 and -1 in the 6 or 7 attempts plus 40. That's remarkable. And 58 of 58. I don't care if you're kicking it from the 10-yard line or whatever, is a very impressive skill in and of itself. Weinberg, and from what I've seen, isn't quite there from the consistency standpoint. You wouldn't necessarily expect that from a true freshman, but the leg strength is there, and it's there with a little something left over as well. So I think you're set here for the foreseeable future, and you can be very optimistic about the situation at kicker moving forward.
I mean, I'd be extremely interested in seeing either of them do kickoffs. I mean, your kickoff coverage last year was pretty good overall, and I mean, there's a little room for improvement on it too. So this is yet another area where I don't think it's crazy to project some improvement with your kickoff and kickoff coverage this year.
Yeah,
Tell me about
and
our forensic congruity. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
talk about your forensic congruity. Talk about optimizing your business, and in this manner, part of optimizing your business is just to recruit at a better manner and have deeper and more talented kids to do things like kickoff. I mean, that's why I think part of, like, look at some of the safety, look at some of the young defensive backs, and I'm talking corners and safeties that aren't going to be starters, but are going to make their way out onto the field. And whether you're optimizing your business or your special teams, you want as good of pieces as you can have. And I think just the total depth that exists on this roster is going to be reflective of what you look and what you see some of these special team units. So, Congruity HR, fantastic to get your special teams, so to say, of your business in line and operating in as efficient a manner as possible. HR, payroll, all sorts of other facets of the business that are great to hand over to a third party. CongruityHR.com is the website. Matt Lewis is the man that we wholeheartedly endorse. And Matt's been on a little bit of hot streak recently. So thank you to you, the
Yes, Matt.
Nolecast listeners, for continuing to reach out to him and taking advantage of a services offered by a great supporter of the Nolecast and Florida State Athletics.
So kickoff return. I mean, there's like so many guys that I think actually could be legitimate kickoff return for you. I mean, like there's you think about who did it for you last year, right? I mean, it was Deuce and I mean, like, okay, and he's still here, but also adding a piece like Lucas could be interesting too. Like he handled a lot of it at Indiana and had some nice moments, and I I think the return game here, dude, has a real upside to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is another area that could get better.
when I first talked to the coaches about the addition of Lucas and what they thought he could bring, it was now look, they're going to get him involved on the offense, absolutely. But the first three sentences were all about special teams and all about what this guy can do to flip the field, what he can do to just more times than not when he catches it with space to make that first move upfield, then you know you're looking at 15 or 17 yards on the positive. The guy's probably as quick as anybody on the team, and has some pretty top end speed as well. I mean, it's not just quickness; it's speed. And Lucas is he's got kind of the work done syndrome, man, where he's hard as hell to see. And by the time you see him, he's he's in the clear, and you're not catching him. So really excited as to what it looks like. Brown is a kid on kickoffs. The LSU Brown. We've got a couple transfers in with the last name of Brown. Is not somebody I wouldn't be surprised to see him involved in the kickoff game. Deuce, as you mentioned, somebody that did it last year and took one back to the house, may well be featured there. And again, might have a couple younger members of the secondary involved in what you do in the kick return game as well. So fun group.
Yeah, more speed on the field is just better, and as you continue to recruit better, I mean that's a spot where you can get some of those young guys
Yeah.
involved early.
Well,
Also, like,
think about a guy like
and then
Amari Williams. I mean, dude, Amari Williams is just turned 18. I don't want to overhype kids, but holy crap, future's bright for that kid. And it
yeah,
may mean that he's on your punt coverage, and he's the last set of returners before you actually get to your returners on your kick team. You just when you have these great pieces that you recruit, but they're not quite ready to take over a starter's role or whatever else, then special teams is where you normally see them. And I think you're going to have a couple moments this year where you just go, damn. I mean, if if Danzy looks in practice like what he does in games, and you're gonna notice him as well, and that might be a guy that's doing, that guy might be a guy that's a gunner for you or something like that this year. Just a incredible raw athlete that I think special teams will be the first manner in which you see him, and excited to see how they use a lot of these young kids.
but when I was running my numbers for this team, I was a little bit surprised at how high I was on it, right? And I kind of looked under the hood a little bit, and special teams are playing like an outsized part of that, because I do think there's a certain stickiness to being pretty damn good on special teams if you have a really high level of athlete and you return everybody,
Hmm.
which they do. I mean, traditionally special teams projections are very much all over the map, but if you were good at both specialists, if you return both, and you have a real high level of athleticism on the football team, then there is a chance that you can be as good or better. And I mean, both of us would absolutely sign up for top six in the country in special teams, and we would just take that to the bank. But there is some chance that could be better,
Yeah,
and it
top
wouldn't.
six is probably some degree of luck, but I think having an expectation that you're a top 10, top 12 total special teams unit is is within order. And we don't normally talk like that unless we're very confident that that will take place. So I'm excited about what you have in special teams.
And also, from a sort of like more meta roster management long term strategy thing with the with the change to 105 players, and a lot of teams, um, and no teams really officially announced that they're going to go to 105 scholarships, but certainly some will probably come close. Um, I do think that we will see some of the very, very top teams in the country, in which I include FSU. Uh, I would not be shocked at all if they dedicate a scholarship to a return only specialist. There are guys that like Lucas's size, right?
Hmm.
But there are guys like Lucas in college football who are probably too small to play corner or receiver, like in a normal functioning of the offense. I mean, obviously there's some gadget stuff to do, but I mean, if you got 105 scholarships now and you got a really really good return guy at the G5 level, I think you're going to see those guys elevate up. Whereas before, is a team really going to take a guy as a returner only in certain circumstances? But now I think they might actually going forward, if there's one out there to be had, which
Yeah.
sometimes at G5 level you do see. So it'd be interesting to monitor that going forward for sure. What else do we have here? Oh, fourth down decisions. I think we already talked about this a little bit, but Mike is one of the guys that really plays correct strategy. If you're sitting down at blackjack table and you play proper strategy, does it guarantee that you win? No. But if you play a whole bunch of hands and you are playing correct strategy according to the card, as opposed to just playing just off your gut, um, the guy playing the correct strategy card is going to win in the long term. And Norvell's on a long-term contract. I do think that that his correct strategy probably steals you a game, once every season and a half to 2 seasons, maybe. That's a rough estimate, but just not making horrendous game management decisions is definitely plus EV, as some other fan bases in the state may know about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's good to get
anything
that
else on
win over
special teams?
Georgia Tech when you get a chance. So yeah, how do you turn a 12-minute conversation into 21 minutes? Let Ingram start talking about random freshmen that he's excited about that aren't specialists.
Amen.
But hey, that happens. So want to always thank our friends at Madison Social, whether it be a third down, fourth down decision, or whatever else. Fantastic people, great place there. Obviously, we're big fans of the Charlie Park spot, and we'll say remind people again of Social Kitchen. Had a ribeye strip steak a couple nights ago that I brought back from Tallahassee, and yeah, man, it's just great. It's great when you cook a steak and the first bite, you're just like, yeah, that's bloody fantastic. And I know it was more expensive than I normally spend, but they've got Snake River Farms and some other fantastic meat purveyors up there, and Social Kitchen wholeheartedly endorse, and a great addition to the Tallahassee food scene. So thanks to the good people at the For the Table Restaurant Group.
Nice, man. I will see you in just a couple minutes for, I don't know, maybe a linebacker preview.
Yeah, let's talk some linebackers.
All right, I'll see you.